Shana Tova. Nicole and I have a short but effective prayer that we use when we get too focused on someone else's shortcomings. The phrase is, bless them, change me. And we realize that it works for us in marriage as well. Like those moments when Nicole is trying to get my attention, but I seem to be immersed in these holy moments of sorts. Jason, yo, Rabbi. Then I look up. Bless him, change me, she must be thinking. The prayer is also pretty useful in those moments when one of us seems to have misplaced or lost something. Nicole, for example, has clocked countless moments when she finds herself in need of my credit card to purchase something, subsequently leading me to inquire as to the whereabouts of her own debit or credit card. Did you lose it, I ask? No, it's definitely not lost. It's just missing somewhere again. Bless her, change me. But she's not alone. I hold the title in our nuclear family for losing or misplacing personal items. Babe, I say to her, yes. Do you know where my sunglasses and wallet are? Oh, you mean the ones you left on top of your car that the neighbor found in the street? This is truth. From iPad and AirPod cases finding new homes aboard international flights, to the remote that I swore was right in front of me 30 seconds ago, I know she must be uttering those words, bless him, change me. Yet those moments are commonplace in our household. At times they draw ire, and at others laughter. Yet those instances of losing something can carry the burden of weightiness and concern. So much so that even our rabbinic teachings offers great wisdom as to when an object goes missing, and if and when it may ever finally derive the term lost. Without getting into the weeds of rabbinic literature on this Rosh Hashanah morning, some important takeaways. According to Jewish law, returning a lost object, in fact, is an obligation, one that is to be initiated by the finder, and not returning missing objects is considered theft. Rabbinic discussions go deeper into a term called simanim, or identifying signs of an object when something ultimately becomes ownerless, and when the finder of the item is allowed to keep it without a sham or without guilt. Meaning those identified sunglasses on the street, that $20 bill that may have fallen out of one's pocket, or the AirPod case found in the comfort of an airplane seat pocket could be yours guilt-free. Yet our tradition notes more importantly that something is not considered lost when the object goes missing. It's only considered lost when you give up on finding it. It's only considered lost when you give up on finding it. And the Talmud calls that moment yeush, or despair. It's only when you feel this despair that the item truly becomes lost. So perhaps Nicole was speaking in her true, authentic voice when she noted that her debit card was missing somewhere, but it's not lost. Our rabbinic teachings also give us agadah. They give us folklore, and on this subject, I'm reminded of the legend of the Even HaToim, a Claimant Stone, as it's called. The stone was found in the center of Jerusalem. An archaeologist imagined it to be like a large pyramid with wide platform steps. During various festivals and holidays like this day of Rosh Hashanah, when the entire community made pilgrimage to Jerusalem, people would gather at its center, and anyone who found an object brought it with them to the stone. And anyone who lost an object came there as well. While I imagine a giant communal lost and found, the Even HaToim, the stone of lost objects, was also a statement of our mutual bond. We can help each other find what's missing. The stone was the antidote to our collective yeush, our collective despair. Reb Nachman, the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, teaches that the central commandment of these days of awe in which we are sitting is known as Hashavat Aveda, returning what's missing. Amazing. So according to Reb Nachman, we are not obligated to come here to beat ourselves up or to think about how we might live and how we might die as a result of our behavior. Rather, this is our time to identify what is missing for us. After all, who among us has missed an opportunity for joy or compassion, or you name the value, at one point or another in your own life? So how fitting that the entire theme of these high holy days is teshuvah, of returning to ourselves. This morning, we return to this space to reconnect with friends and community. And we also return to do the heavy, heavy lifting, to get those shots of spiritual nourishment to help identify what might be missing in ourselves, in our communities, and throughout society. But in order to identify what might be missing, we first have to name what we see and what we know. And there is a lot happening, and there is a lot to hold. The war in Ukraine, atrocities popping up throughout our world, natural disaster, the rollback of a woman's right to choose, and deep divisions in our country over other domestic issues, pervasive anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, just to name a few. Over the past years, local and domestic elections have redefined the culture and the contours of our nation. Our election cycles have mainstreamed xenophobia and hostility, encouraged bigotry and radicalized hatred. This new normal has brought painful and deadly outcomes and has stretched far beyond the reach of politics, infecting our personal and national souls in normalizing ways. And all of this layered on top of our own internal wrestling. The societal layers I mentioned are indeed seismic, and far more than any of us should be expected to manage on our own. But I have good news for you. We, as a Jewish community, know how to navigate these societal tremors as we continue to survive and to thrive. In 1997, William Strauss and Neil Howe, American authors and historians, wrote a fascinating book that introduced profound frames which I continue to come back to in considering the reality of our times. Their book is entitled The Fourth Coming, The Fourth Turning, An American Prophecy. Strauss and Howe identified a cyclical pattern in American history. Their analysis revealed a cycle with 4 distinct periods, each delineated by its own characteristics, cultural norms, and subsequent outcomes. Each shift from one period into another, Strauss and Howe call a turning. What is critical to note for my point here today is that the fourth turning is always that of crisis. Their theory, not surprisingly, puts us right now in the fourth turning. They note the following about the current times in which we're living, and quote, "The next fourth turning is due to begin shortly after the new millennium. Around the year 2005, a sudden spark will catalyze a crisis mood. Remnants of the old social order will disintegrate. Political and economic trust will implode. Real hardship will beset the land, with severe distress that could involve questions of class, race, nation, and empire. Yet this time of trouble will also bring about seeds of social rebirth. Americans will share a regret about recent mistakes and a resolute new consensus about what to do. The very survival of our nation will feel at stake. And sometime before the year 2025, they note America will pass through a great gate in history, commensurate with the American Revolution, Civil War, and the twin emergencies of the Great Depression and World War II. If there is a war, they continue, it's likely to be one of maximum risk and effort. America will enter a fourth turning with the means to inflict horrors and perhaps will confront adversaries who possess the same. Americans will also enter the fourth turning with a unique opportunity to achieve a new greatness as a people. As the old civic order gives way, Americans will have to craft a new one. This will require a values consensus, and if all goes well, there could be a renaissance of civic trust and more. Thus might the fourth turning end in apocalypse or glory. Now, it's a pretty safe bet that we're all on the side of glory, but if you read and subscribe to any media source, it can feel much more like an apocalypse. We can help each other find what's missing. Americans less and less read articles written by or engage in conversation with people with whom they disagree. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and gaming platforms have become the play space for marauding cybervillains and trolls, spewing racist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, misogynistic venom. Fear is high and tolerance low. Empathy, at times seemingly non-existent. Buffalo and Uvalde, just two of the recent painful sites of erupting hostility, hatred, and tensions that exist throughout our country. The author's prophetic frame reminds us that every generation needs to determine what America we want to live in. We can help each other find what's missing. But how? Well, our tradition provides us an annual time and reframe, a sacred pause, if you will, to dive into personal and collective soul searching. And it must begin with the inventory, a time to identify attainable actions and clarify next steps forward, to contend with who we become and dream again about who and what we would like to be. We are charged with starting this process with personal accounting. What held me back this past year? Where did I take up too much space, too little? Am I striving to be my fully expressed best self? Am I achieving balance? Am I cultivating a practice of self-care? We do this in our relationships too. Who did I hurt? Where do I need to make amends? Who have I neglected to prioritize, to offer gratitude? And we can and should do this inventory more globally with our families, our communities, and throughout our society. Who we are and what our actions are willing to take. What are those ideals? Coupled with our accounting, our tradition offers timeless parables that help provide a visual to guide our journeys. And I want to share one. Shortly after crossing the sea on their way out of Egypt, the Israelites are attacked by the Amalekites, an army determined to destroy the weakest and infirm among them first. As Joshua leads the Israelites in battle, Moses ascends a nearby mountain overlooking the valley where they fight. And with all the strength he can muster, he holds his hands up to the heavens. And as he does, his people start to prevail over their enemies. But eventually, he grows weary, and Israel starts to falter. So Moses' brother Aaron and his companion Hur stand beside Moses and support him, one on each side, keeping his arms steady and raised high throughout the day until the Israelites defeat their enemy in battle. So what's going on with Moses' arms? A rabbinic teaching notes that Moses' raised arms would keep the people's heads up, casting their gaze toward the heaven and inspiring them to fight harder for the greater good. With the simple upward gesture of Moses' arms, he strengthens their resolve. He reminds our ancestors to dream big, to know that this is not the end. Moses' raised arms mid-battle draw the people's gaze upward, giving them the strength of heart and body to endure and to remind them of their inherent potential. Rosh Hashanah, this very moment, calls us to lift our gaze upward to catch that first sliver of light from the new moon. I invite you to do that tonight at Tashlich. Remember, every lunar month starts from the depths of darkness, when only the first trace of light from the new moon can be seen. It's an invitation for us to look up, to question, to seek out, and to dream, precisely precisely at that moment when darkness might otherwise draw us down. Moses and the moon both summon us out of the darkness of pessimism and invite us into the light of aspiration. And the light is you, it's me, it's each of us helping one another to find what is missing. Humanity, we know, is filled with so many beautiful examples of individuals presenting the other from attaching to despair. Laura Payne and Paquita Williams met on the subway in New York City when they got stopped underground for 2 hours. Laura was on her way to work. It was 8 a.m. Paquita was her train conductor. Paquita noted, "There are times if the train breaks down, people actually think it's my fault. Or if there is an increase in the fare, that's because I said, hey, let's increase the fare." But I think back on my mom. I have 3 sisters and 4 brothers, and she said to be patient with all of us. So that's why I'm able to be patient. Like the day the train stopped on us. There was no power. So I walked through the whole train. I walked from front to back because I knew somebody would be nervous. Laura noted to Paquita, "You really made everybody on that train connect. We all started talking to each other like we were human beings. And we left the train and somebody's like, let's do this again tomorrow morning. Same time, same place." We could have started out as a bad day, turned into a good one because of you. And Paquita noted that 20 years prior, she went to the dentist and she was so afraid. And I said to the dentist, she noted, "Please hold my hand, just let me know you're there." And he said to me, "I'm not your date." And that stuck with me. So that's why I do what I do with my passengers. I want you to know that if you need me to hold your hand, I'm there. What a powerful model of love and kindness amidst the backdrop of all of the pain that continues to swirl around us. The truth is, you and I each have the capacity for the same. Each day we find moments to help others restore what they're missing. Weekly, right here in this sacred space, we read a list of names of individuals who are in need of physical, emotional, or spiritual healing. Those who've been deficient in health, and in hope. We sing Mishaberach, praying for those elements to be restored to them. We stand alongside mourners as they recall loved ones during Kaddish. As we do so, to lessen their despair, to let them know you are not alone and we are here. And while their loved one or loved ones may be physically gone, all is not lost. We send our friends texts and emails, physical embrace, to demonstrate our love and our care, to remind them that acts of kindness can actually summon our better angels. And we encounter upstanders lifting their voices and walking the talk in support of those in need. And we find institutions once preserving positions of neutrality speaking up when they encounter a lack of moral clarity and leadership. We can help each other find what's missing. And in order to do so on this Rosh Hashanah, I invite you into a reframe of our traditional understanding of the concept of teshuvah. Not only to see it as a vehicle to return or to repent, but as a critical and sacred tool of helping one another to actually find what's missing. Teshuvah begins with the notion that we are not trapped in circles of inevitability. Teshuvah is at the heart of every impulse to entrepreneurship, every inclination to renewal, every story of redemption, evolution, and growth. And teshuvah is the essence of our people's gift for that internal conversation of despair to turn towards action. I know I'm realistic here, standing up here on this Rosh Hashanah morning, knowing that our actions may not always change the ultimate outcome. But I do know they can alter our attitude, reinforce our ability to withstand challenges, and remind us that patterns are made to be broken. We can help each other find what's missing. And this is how. When there's heartbreak, let your heart expand. When there's complexity and confusion, model patience and kindness to let the swirling waters settle. For those of you who've already opted out of the conversation, find your voice and your way back. For those who've surrendered to cynicism, stand up and be counted. For those dreamy-eyed idealists floating above the fray, I invite you to trouble the waters of injustice where you see it, so you and I can do our part to help turn this fourth turning into one of glory. This morning we are going to listen to the blast of the shofar. We must hear in it, and I invite you to hear in it, a celebration for what each of us have found in ourselves, either in this moment, throughout these 10 days together, or beyond. We will say, a great shofar has sounded, and the still small voice is heard. That still small voice is the one that comes from each of us, a reminder of who we aspire to be. I am missing something precious. Will you help me find it? I have something wonderful. Can I share it with you? Together, let us help one another find what's missing. Amen.